And we're live. What's going on, everyone? It's Talks with Kenny here today, and welcome to the Lives with Kenny show. So, today we're going to go on pretty much some facts about Black history. What led you to make this video, Kenny? Well, apparently, there's some Black conservatives that disagree with the whole slavery point, and I just think we're making a whole mountain out of a molehill at this point. And I kind of wanted to give some kind of my thoughts as a parent myself and how I would go about teaching my kids about Black history. And it's not how you're going to think, right? I'm going to teach my kids that it used to be Black people's greatest oppressor, but now it's greatest liberator. That's the narrative I'm going to preach to my kids. But before I go into that, some people have been asking how they want to support my channel. On here on YouTube, I'm not going to be creating a YouTube membership service on here. So if you want to do membership stuff, I'll be doing it on Locals. So check me out on Locals. Please follow me on Locals. If you find what I said valuable, I'll pretty much will post more content if I see more people following the page. I give some little essays, some snippets about my thoughts on some news I run into and some other things. So if you guys are interested in hearing like more of my personal thoughts in a more written form, please follow me on Locals and also on Twitter as well. That I'm kind of being more open about written language. So now that I've done housekeeping out of the way, I want to kind of get into the topic of the video. So before I get into the video, I wanted to kind of give some of my personal thoughts about Black history, and here's some of my thoughts. So here I have a book called The College Bred Negro. Now this book is written by W.E. Du Bois, and he investigates how college graduates among Black Americans and the widespread publicity did towards making clear of like misconceptions about the education of like Black people, right? Black people were college educated before the 1960s against popular belief. Like liberals like to sit here and pretend that things didn't get better for Black people until they got involved, until they came in and saved the day, which is not true. The truth is Black people were helping themselves. The truth was Black people put up half the money and helped start schools alongside northern white people, right? Who tend to be Republican, by the way. I like to throw that out there. And they made Spelman, Morehouse, which were all, by the way, named after white people. Go look it up. Your historical Black colleges, at least Morehouse, Spelman, and I forgot the other ones. But most of them are named after white people, the white collaborators with Black Americans to create those schools. Just like the Tuskegee Institute. It's the same thing. So to throw out this idea that America is a racist country and throughout its history it did nothing for Black people is a false narrative in my view. And those are some of the facts that I'm basing this on. You can check out The College Bred Negro if you don't believe me, right? Here's another book, Success Runs in Our Blood. This is by George Fraser, right? And he explains kind of how group economics worked in the Black community, right? The Black community was the first group of people to enact the parallel economy, the things that conservatives are trying to do now. Well, Black people already did it. And Success in Our Blood kind of points out how immigrants are essentially doing things that Black Americans in the 1890s, 1910s were doing already. Work hard, get an education, get skills, apply those skills to the betterment of your community, which is group economics, right? Create your own businesses, which what Black people were doing during segregation, or especially in the South, right? Because the South was hostile to Black America. That's why Black Americans created Black Wall Street. And then during the Tulsa Massacre, Democrats didn't like that, right? Because it was a Democratic county that destroyed Black Wall Street. I don't care what no Democrat gonna sit here and tell me. That's Black history. Black people were minding their own business, doing for themselves, but protecting themselves from discrimination in the South, the Democratic South, by the way. And they still came over here and destroyed their stuff. Because at the end of the day, the Democrats can understand that Black people are minority groups, can think for themselves, do for themselves, and don't need them. Because that's the Democrats' playbook. The Democrats want enforced dependence. That is their primary goal, their most political goal. They want the slave to be dependent on the slave master. That's the Democratic politics. This is plantation politics. Right? This idea, I got it from Dinesh D'Souza, Death of a Nation. He makes some very strong arguments here, and I agree with almost 100% of what he says in that book. Now, in regards to Black success, Red, White, and Black gives a balanced view about Black history, right? And in this book, it talks about Black overcomers right? They talk about Black Wall Street. They talk about the Negro Business Leagues, the Negro Women's Council, right? That had made great impacts in the development of black folks, right? They talk about how after slavery, and this is the point that's in the point of contention, when this is just you observing reality, is slaves used the skills that they were forced to use for the benefit of their masters and used it for the benefit of themselves. That was the argument that was laid out in Florida Standard, because I'm a Floridian, born and raised here, probably will die here. And I agree with that statement. It's a true statement. Booker T. Washington used the fact that he knew how to read, and he taught his other fellow freed people how to read. And they used that to their advantage to increase the literacy rate. Look it up. The illiteracy rate for the black community jumped exponentially over the next few years. And people will say, yo, this is astonishing. A group of people that have been suppressed, that have been falling behind, to get together this much ground in literacy rate is unheard of. Right? And this is why they had a jump start. Slavery is wrong because the people were not able to be compensated for their labor. That's what makes slavery wrong. Right? But to recognize the fact that, hey, you learned some skills. You use a negative and you was able to transform it into a positive. That's the message that we were trying to put. How black people used the worst point in American history and still went out and be successful. That's the kind of black history I'm going to teach my kids. They're going to learn about black achievement during segregation, right? They're going to learn about Black Wall Street in Tulsa. And also, many people don't know that, in Durham, North Carolina, right? No one knows, like, the left seems like, in mainstream leftists, this is their biggest problem. I think this is an opportunity for conservatives to really push this message. They can push how black people showcase do for self, self-determination, entrepreneurship, self-help, education, work ethic. The black community in earlier, like after slavery, exemplified those conservative values. They can use it and say, hey, look, even though America was the most racist in all time, black people were owning businesses. Black people, slaves, ex-slaves died millionaires. Ex-slaves started businesses. Bro, you can't deny that. You can't deny the achievement of that black people were able to obtain without the help of anybody. Human capital. This was Booker T. Washington's biggest argument. Human capital. And that's the message I want to teach my kids, right? But hey, I digress. I kind of want to like speed through my thoughts because I want to get into the meat of the video. So I want to talk about what the left actually wants, right? So my argument here is that black history, the hard facts about black history is that it's ran by revisionists in our country, right? Like this is the argument, and I agree with this argument, is that the left-wing revisionists come here and they want to teach black people learned helplessness. What is learned helplessness, Kenny? Well, we're going to read this academic study based on the National Library of Medicine, right? This is psychology, guys. The failure to escape. Okay, so this was an experiment done by dogs by I'm going to butcher it, Stelgman and Myrene. Failure to escape. They theorized that animals learned that outcomes were independent of their responses, that nothing they did mattered, and that this learning undermined trying to escape. Now, let's take this concept and apply it to black history. If every single time you learn about black history, you learned about how black people were slaves, how black people couldn't do anything for themselves, how black people was in poverty, how black people had it bad in this country. What are you doing to the minds of people who look like who are descended from those people? You're teaching them that their outcomes are independent of their own individual responses. You're showing them that, oh, there's no matter what you do, black person, you're always gonna have the white man on your neck. This is the narrative that a lot of black history people who teach black history, this is what they inadvertently put out in front of us. That black people cannot determine their own success. That black people need handouts like affirmative action to get a shot at the table. That they cannot create their own destinies, which is a lie. And this is why they don't show you any history about in the 1800s when black people were voting 90% Republican. They don't want to tell you that because that exemplifies that narrative. It counters that narrative that black people were helpless and they were just waiting around for the democratic savior to come down from on high and save them from their oppression. Black people did for themselves. Oh, I'm oppressed. I'm gonna fight for my own. I'm gonna fight for my own determination. I'll do something. I'll carve out a safe haven for me and my family. That used to be That used to be the strength of the black community. But now, we've been bombarded with a bunch of liberal thinking. This was what happened to the black community. And this is my taste. This is why they keep pushing that the Republicans are racist, that black people, if you ain't black, if you don't vote Democrat, because Democrats are the only party for you. This is why they play these fear tactics like, oh, look, a racist Republican. We suck, but they hate you. So at least vote for us who's trying. That's how they market to the black folks. And this is what happens, right? So this is the National Negro Business League, which was founded by Booker T. Washington in the 1900s. Remember, Booker T. Washington used to be an ex-slave. How do imagine this theory, and this is black history, right? We're talking about the hard facts of black history. How does a guy who just been freed, what maybe 50 years ago, 40 years ago, I don't, the timing I might get off, but how does recently freed slaves already have the mental capacity to already create associations, already can form collaborations towards the interests of their own people? How they do that? How is black people who just became free people were able to collaborate with white Northerners to create schools for themselves, to educate themselves for their own means and own ends without the direction of white people? Yet people are going to sit here and tell me that white privilege is the greatest threat to black America. How? Because in my view, based on that history, black American success is independent of what white people do or think. Because even when white people thought 1900s, remember that it's more racist than 2023. When white people was at their most racist time in U.S. history, black people were still thriving and surviving to the point where they had to go in and actually physically destroy their businesses just to set them back. That's how independent black people were from the racist white Southerners, right? But people want to sit here and tell me in 2023 that racism is the biggest problem in my life. When I come out here and say racism is a minor inconvenience in my problem, people want to get mad about what I have to say. People want to get offended about what I have to say. All I'm saying is it true or false? That's all I care about. Because I don't suffer from imagination. In the 1900s, this used to be black people's reality. Oh, I'm going to get lynched if I step outside of my neighborhood. So let's keep our neighborhoods safe. Let's keep our neighborhood clean. Black community during the 1900s was more married than the white people. Yet all of a sudden, white people give us handouts, war on poverty, and now we got high crime rates in our area. We shooting each other. We victimize each other more than any other group of people in America. But during the most racist time in American history, that wasn't the case. Black on black crime was never even a thought in the black community during the 1900s. But now it is. Throughout the history of our whole black history, no one want to talk about this. Black on black crime has more deaths than the KKK lynched black folks. How? How, Sway? How is that? All right, we're going to get into it too. We're going to talk about how some of the policies that the Democrats like to push so much, and this is hard facts about black history, right? We're going to talk about it. Is that a lot of the policies that the Democrats push was all rooted in racism. Because Democrats were the party of racism. They never changed. The party switch never happened. The only thing that switched was the racists changed their spots. Instead of being racist against black people, they became racist towards white people. That's it. That's all they did. Democrats were always a part of racism. They've always been the party of segregation. They look at what they're doing now. They want to segregate liberals from conservatives. They want to segregate women from men. They want to segregate biological women from men that assume they're women. And then they discriminate against the other side for the other one. And they want to use the pretext, oh, we're here to defend the minority. We're here to defend the little guy. As an excuse, as a shield to actually get what they really want. Hey, I just want these people dependent on me, so I'm guaranteed to have their vote, so I can stay in power. Politicians have a conflict of interest that they want to stay in power. That's the truth. But it's up to the citizens of the country to hold these people accountable, to have leverage over them. If these people don't do the things they claim to do when you promise them their vote, then they shouldn't have your vote. They should suffer a consequence for that. But it seems like that's hard for a lot of black people to understand because they've been taught learned helplessness from the Democratic Party that only they can do something for them. And that if they go somewhere else, it's against their best interest, whatever the hell that means. But I digress. So I still got some time here. So This is Frederick Douglass, my favorite historical figure, right? This is the guy I look up to in Black history. I'm gonna have his book, Up From Slavery, right here next to me. Oh no, that's Booker T. Washington. Sorry, but why should a colored man enlist? This is during the Civil War, 1860, right? You're gonna hear some of the talk. This is how. Like, imagine this guy. This guy actually went through slavery, right? Because when people start calling about reparations, oh, we deserve reparations for our ancestors. This is the mindset your ancestors were having. They weren't worrying about getting paid back some money for their labor. Because imagine, Black people in 2023 are more entitled to reparations than the people who actually went through slavery. That's just my observation, and that's sad. This is why I have this idea that Black America today, they seem to want to extort the suffering of their ancestors for their own personal gain. That's the truth about reparations, right? But hey, let's get into it. We'll get into it. All right. The question has been repeatedly put to us while raising men. This is for the Massachusetts regime during the past 5 weeks. I kind of want to skip, right? And this is the attitude that Frederick Douglass had, and this is what inspires me to continue talking, no matter how much likes and dislike ratios I get, no matter how much hate I get in the comment section about what I say. This what gives me strength, because this guy, he actually went through slavery. He actually went through it. And this is the kind of mindset he had. First, you are a man, though a black man, because I'm not going to use colored, if you're only a horse or an ox, incapable of deciding whether the rebels are right or wrong. Pretty much he's calling Black people to action. Hey, what do you think? Do you think you should be fighting for your own freedom? You have no responsibility. He's pretty much calling you out, like calling them out, saying, hey, you're not a bystander in this. This affects you. If we win, you're free. If you lose, you stay enslaved in suffering. So go fight for your freedom. This is essentially what his call to arms for slaves to join the Civil War. You have no responsibility and might, like a horse or an ox, go on eating corn or grass in total indifference. As to which side is victorious or vanquished in this conflict, you are, however, not a horse and not a ox, but a man, a human being. That's my ideology too. We're all human here. I don't care if you're white, Asian, black. It doesn't matter to me. You're a man, you're a human. We all should see each other as one another, like one people. We're all Americans here, and we want the best for our country. We shouldn't be saying, oh, you can't criticize me because you're not a ADOS, but you want me to pay for your reparations. Oh, okay, bro. You're ever not a horse or a crab, but a man, and whatever concerns men should interest you. Right? And when people say, oh, why you care? Like black liberals will say, oh, why you care so much? Well, it interests me because this is our country. We can't have this discourse continuing throughout our history. And this is why I said, like, the hard facts about Black history, we need to change it. The Black history is supposed to serve as a lesson, not as a narrative to push resentment and grievance to cause some type of division in our culture. That defeats the purpose of learning history. And as a nation's entitled to teach history in a way that unifies its people. To acknowledge the wrong, but look to the future. That should be the facts about Black history. I'm going to keep repeating it. America was once Black people's greatest oppressor. Now it's its greatest liberator. That's the truth. That's the facts. That's the nuance. That's the nuance take. It ain't black and white. It ain't America was founded on racism. Okay, show me the Constitution where it says slavery is the birthright of the white man. Where on the Constitution it says that? Or that's you interpreting it that way. Right? And it's always liberals. Like Democrats since the founding, when they seceded from the Union to protect slavery, they always trying to interpret the Constitution how they see it instead of looking at the literal language. It's been true since the beginning of the two parties, since the beginning of the Democratic Party and the beginning of the Republican Party. The Republicans go by the Constitution. Hey, there's nothing in the Constitution that protects slavery, therefore we should abolish slavery. Democrats go, no, if the founding fathers actually intended slavery to be there, they would have wrote it in there. But that's not what's on the damn paper, bro. It says all men are created equal. The country was founded on the Constitution, therefore America should not have slavery because slavery does not treat people equally. Constitutional. But no, Democrats want to kind of imagine, oh, this is actually how we should interpret the Constitution. See, always trying to bend the rules into their vision of the world. They've been doing it for slavery. Now they're trying to justify it for other rights. But you see what I'm going with this, right? But, I digress. A man is a man for that second. You are, however, not only a man, but an American citizen, right? Look at the language that Frederick Douglass, a slave, a former slave, fighting in the Civil War. Look how he talks. But black Americans in 2023 are out here crying, being more entitled than this man. This man said, I have to earn my freedom. And a freedom that black Americans in 2023 did not earn themselves, but it was a benefit that got handed down to them from their ancestors. And they try to use that fact to hit me with it and saying, oh, you wouldn't understand. I'm born American, bro. Get out of here. Craziness. Squandering their great legacy. Black Americans have some great history that they can stand and be proud of. But instead, they use that pride to try to get something for nothing. So declared by the highest legal advisor of the government, you have here to express in various ways, not only your willingness, but your earnest desire to fulfill any and every obligation which relate with the relation of citizenship imposed. Indeed, I don't know how to say that word. You have hitherto felt wronged and slighted, because while white men of all nations have been freely enrolled to serve the country, you are a native born citizen and have been coldly denied the honor of aiding in the defense of the land of your birth. The injustice thus done to you is now repented by the government, and you are welcome to place in an army of the nation. Should you refuse to enlist now, you will justify the past contempt of the government towards you and lead it to a regret having honored you with a call to take arms in its defense. You cannot but see that here's a good reason why you should promptly enlist. This is some of the arguments. He had like 5 arguments, I believe, right? A third reason why a colored man should enlist is found in the fact that every Negro, every black hated and slave lover in the land regards the arming of blacks as a calamity, and doing so is best to prevent it. AKA, he's hinting at what, guys? Gun control. Gun control was founded on slavery and Jim Crow. Oh, hard facts about black history, right? But who's the main one pushing black gun control? Black people, maybe. Oh, it's black people killing each other it's guns that's killing black people. Who's pulling the trigger? Another black guy. All to absolve themselves of responsibility. When are we going to have accountability in our culture? I think that's what we're missing in our history. Accountability. All right. I'm not going to go too far, right? Fourth reason you should enlist is to learn the use of arms, to become familiar with the means of securing, protecting, and defending your own liberty. I can end the video right there. That's the facts about black history. You have to become familiar with the means of securing, protecting, and defending your own liberty. For me as a conservative, that's for my family. This is why, hey, do for self. Government, do nothing for me. Government, get out of my way. That's conservatism. When black progressives come out here and said, oh, in our black culture, we were never conservatives. I point to this. I said, oh, you're a damn liar. Oh, you don't know history then, bro. This was the point, right? Oh, slavery. No. When you're a slave, they didn't want you to learn how to arm yourself, protect yourself, defend yourself. They don't teach slaves how to defend themselves because that didn't benefit the slave master, right? But what did benefit the slave master? Your labor. So the better they made your labor, the more benefit they get themselves, right? But when Republicans come out here, put out law saying, hey, we're going to teach accurate history, we're going to give nuanced history, they didn't even say all instances of slavery. They said in some instances of slavery, slaves applied some of the skills they learned during slavery for their own benefit. And people want to be in their fifis about that, when that's just the truth. Say they're lying at least. And recently I saw a video from the Black Conservative Perspective. He pointed out how progressives made the same argument. Bruh, I'll link his video at the end of this clip in the replay. Y'all find it. He shows, he said, look, progressives, they taught it the same way. They say, hey, some slaves learned from slavery how to do their thing. I'm like, yo, that's craziness. I appreciate it, Matthew. That's craziness to me. Okay, here's another one. Like, I got 6 minutes left before we go into the main event, which is where we're going to go with Larry Elder. And he's going to be, debunking a lot of stuff about what we learned about Black history, and then we'll go into the meat of the video, which is reparations, right? Why are colored people doing for themselves, right? And this is a question in 1825 that Frederick Douglass posed in July 14th, 1848, right? Right? Teaching American history, because that's what it is, right? And Morgan Freeman had a big influence in my life. And when he had a legendary interview, and I'm glad that Larry Elder showcased it in this video that I'm about to show you after I'm done giving my personal thoughts about this topic, is that I always felt that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. My father always taught me, be so good they can't deny you, right? Kenny, you at 2,500 subscribers? Be so good they can't deny you. Eventually, the results will come in. But I ain't going to worry about, oh, why didn't I get a milli on the first video? It's because I'm a black man. No. Why would I worry about things I can't control? That's their problem. If you think I'm dumb because I'm a black man, that's your problem. If you think I'm less than because I'm a black man, that's your problem. It ain't my problem. My problem is I'm just as capable as anyone else. Who gonna win? You or me? Bro, it's only me. Only I control my actions. You can't control anything. You can control your thoughts about me. But end of the day, if you don't put no actions behind your intentions, it's just an idea. And like I said, in every idea, anybody can be wrong. But results, action, they speak louder. Actions speak louder than words. If a racist came out and told me, Kenny, you'll never become anybody, I have two choices. Prove him right or prove him wrong. That's the same question I tell Black America as a community, as a society. Hey, what we gonna do? Is the math test racist? It's not racist. It's just we don't study for it. We don't prepare for it. If a bunch of black kids played basketball and they couldn't shoot, dribble, and you want to get mad that a bunch of white people, let's play again. Let's do a thought experiment, and then I'll get into the Larry Elder video. Actually, if white people knew how to dribble, shoot, and play basketball properly, but black people are only athletic and they only know how to catch lobs, how the team is going to end up being? It's going to be mostly white, and the black players might be centers and power forwards catching lobs to doing dunks. Now, someone on the outside will be like, oh, look at this. The high school is majority black, but look at all those white kids on the basketball team. This is racism. No, it's skill. The white players happen to have the skills to get those positions, and black people had a certain skill. It's the same thing with the math test. The black kids are not prepared for those math tests, and this is why they fail. It's not because of their skin color. It's because the black community was illy prepared their children for academic success. There's studies, countless studies out there showing how Asian kids spend more time doing homework than other groups of people. Is it any surprise that they do so well academically? And I bet you if you did a study about the time that black kids spend in athletics, you'll probably find a similar correlation. Black kids spend more time in athletics than other groups of kids. And are you surprised that 74% of the NBA is black? 59% of the NFL is black? You want to be surprised. You'll be like, of course, duh. But when it comes to testing, math tests, reading, oh, it's racism, racist standards. Bruh, cop out. Where's the accountability? That's all I care about. I care about things that give us power. You have power over your own mind, not outside events. You know this, you'll have strength. You can't control what happens to you. You only can control how you respond. That's the message of this video, pretty much. So I'm going to just read a little snippet of this, right? The present time is when every black man in the land should be bringing this important question home to his own heart. It is not enough to know that white men and women are nobly devoting themselves to our cause. 1825, by the way. We should know that whenever it's being done amongst ourselves, that our white friends have done and are still doing a great work, good for us, is a fact that which ought to be excited in us in our sentiments of the profoundest gratitude, right? He was speaking gratitude. You think black people are grateful today? Hell no. But look at this guy, recently freed slaves. He fought for his own liberation in the Civil War. He felt a profound gratitude for the people that helped free him. Many white Americans can sit here and claim that the fact that white people who had no connections to slavery died to free slaves, right? Remember, more white people died in the Civil War that technically benefited black people more than white people. White Americans were making claims that was technically reparations. But people would say, no, we want cash payout. But a person who actually went to slavery had gratitude, while people who never even felt a chain on their wrist, unless they were getting handcuffed and going to jail for breaking the law, will sit here and complain and boohoo whine and complain that they deserve money, when the people who actually suffered the atrocities had gratitude for those who helped free them. Craziness, bro. But that's entitlement for you. That's what happens when you're a group of people that expect something for nothing. And I can't stand for that. Sorry, can't. It must never be forgotten that when they have exalted all their energy, devised every scheme, and done all they could in asserting our rights, proclaiming our wrongs, and rebuking our foes, which was the Confederacy, their labor is lost. Yea, worse than lost, unless we are found in the faithful discharge of our anti-slavery duties. If there be one evil spirit among us, for the casting out of which we pray more earnestly than another, it is that lazy, mean, cowardly spirits that rob us of our own manly self-reliance. Ooh, bruh, black men ain't gonna like that line, right? Who's considered the most lazy men on race? You guys can say it. Black men. Look at the stats. We make less money. We're in jail more. Higher unemployment on average, right? If we just comparing men, right? Cowards too. Hey, I'll say black men are cowardly too. Look at the rate of single motherhoods. Look at how single moms complain about their dudes being ain't ish, even though they kind of enabled that behavior because they reward the dudes who ain't ish with kids. But hey, that's a two-way street. But hey, yeah, I agree. Right? They don't believe in self-reliance. Black men don't believe in self-reliance. Self-reliance is a masculine trait. Relying on people is a feminine trait. But this goes back to my original argument in the beginning of the video. Democrats want enforced dependency. This is why a lot of black women are worried now. Oh, black men are getting caught up in conservative thought because it's self-reliance. That's a masculine trait, of course. Conservatives have a messaging that caters to men and teaches us that to depend upon ourselves for the accomplishments of that which we should achieve with our own hands. Reparations, is that something that black men can achieve with their own hands? No, it's not. You asking for a handout and you just using reparations for slavery as a pretext to get it, even though you personally never suffered from it. But you want to claim suffrage on behalf of your ancestors when your ancestors here was expressing gratitude and saying, hey, you gave us a shot. That's all we needed. That's the kind of mentality that I think the black community needs to get back. I'm just being honest. This is just how I personally think, bro. But that's the kind of black history I'm going to teach my kids. I'm not going to teach them this victimhood like, oh, you deserve something because you're a black man. That, woe is you. You need to feel sorry for yourself. Nah, I ain't teaching them none of that. I'm gonna like, hey, look, this is what happened, bro. This is what happened in this country. No country's perfect, by the way. Slavery happened in all around the world. Just like every family is not a perfect family. Just like every family has problems. Every country had their problems. Every country has slavery. This is how slavery happened here in America, son. This is how black people were oppressed, son. It was mostly by this party called the Democratic Party. Tell me I'm lying in the comment section. I'll wait. This party founded the KKK. They named the Democratic Party. During the 1860s, when the Republicans had, because end of the day, all the Americans that had anti-slavery sentiment registered and became Republicans. This is why during the 1860s, no Republican had a slave, owned a slave. No Republican owned a slave during the founding of the Republican Party. No Republican had a slave. All the slave owners were Democrats. But they sit here and they pretend to be the good guy. Launching black codes, market regulation, censorship against black-owned newspapers. And they're using the same tactics they're using today in 2023. And then when I come out and said Democrats has always been the party of racism, segregation, plantation politics, people want to get mad at me. Democrats are a platform based on discrimination because they use that discrimination to enlist learned helplessness. So people become dependent on them because they know if you're dependent on them, you're going to give them your vote. Look at the black community. The black community is the perfect testing ground for what they want all across this multicultural, multiracial democracy / republic. Technically, democracy is a feature. We're a republic. They want this multiracial republic to be just like the black community. Black women, overwhelmingly, the most loyal voting bloc in Democratic Party. But guess what? There's a correlation there. A large percentage of black women are dependent on what? Welfare, social entitlements, on the state. Who's the party of the state? Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the big house. And the black women, excuse my French, are like house Negroes. Oh, yes, master. Don't let them burn our house. Don't let them burn our party. Black man, get over here. Right? Just like when we run in for freedom, they say, you better stay over here. Massa been good to you. And this is how you treat Massa? That's not how black people act with the Democratic Party? Tell me I'm lying. I know I'm not speaking Chinese, bro. Tell me I'm lying. You question the Democratic Party? You get a coon, Uncle Tom sellout. And I'm like, yo, you projecting. That's what you are. I'm asking questions here. I'm saying that black people have been voting Democrat for 50 years. All the negative outcomes are due to their incentives that they created with their policies. War on poverty being my biggest example. Black community was only 25%. I only had a 25% single motherhood rate. Stats show that single parent households have a higher propensity for poverty. What do Democrats do? Oh, hey, if you don't have the man in the house, we'll give you cash and prizes. Advertising it in black neighborhoods, pushing it on the black woman. Hey, oh yeah, you need these benefits. All he has to do is not be in the house. Create conditions, create an incentive. And then the culture arises from that incentive. Oh, I don't need no man. I can raise my kids by myself. And then it skyrocketed the single motherhood rate. And the Democrats allow black men to not take care of their kids for 10 years. And then they hit you with child support. Damn. You saw that finesse? Crazy. They conditioned the black women to not need men. They conditioned black men to abandon their kids. War on poverty now. Because the black man was like, hey, if I'm not in the house, the government will take care of you. It's a win-win for us. I don't have to take care of my responsibility, and you get free cash. You don't have to work for your income. Win-win. That's the game that the Democrats made black people pay. And then after that, the government realized, damn, we can't take care of all these women. They're doing this on purpose now. Okay, let's penalize the black men now. Child support. Oh, man, it's unfair. After you see the setup? After they condition the black men to resolve themselves the responsibility for their kids, they hit you in the other end. Now black men complain about child support now. But blame your ancestors for that. Blame the generation before them because they didn't have no foresight. They didn't have no foresight for that. They condition y'all to be this way. This is what I'm saying. Policies create incentives. Your government is a referee. If the referee keeps calling flops, what are the other players going to do? They're going to be like, this referee keeps calling flops, so I'm a flop. That's exactly what the government just did to the black community. And guess what happened? Who's the most loyal Democratic voters? Black women, black men. My argument as a black conservative is, we've been voting Democrat for 50 straight years. Look at the policies. Look at the prescriptions they address for our problems. And it only created more of those problems. It only set us in a worse position. And the only thing it seems to benefit is the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party knows that people in poverty are more easier to control than people who are independently wealthy. Because poor people have limited leverage. And that's what they want. This is why they struggle so much with Asians sometimes. Because they're like, Asians, just let us help you. The Asians like, I don't need no help. Craziness. But I'm done rambling for today. So let's get into what y'all came here for. Y'all came for Larry Elder. So Larry Elder is going to break down this video. Yeah, the Dems trap black men, the blacks trap blacks down. Yeah, they push welfare on the black community, made sure the black community felt like they needed it, and then once you got hooked on it, they're like, oh, we got them. Because my biggest question, and before I get into the truths about black history with Larry Elder, the facts of the matter is that if the Democrats don't change anything that's going on with the black community today, the black community will still vote 90% Democrat. And my question is, what incentives does the Democrats have to improve the black community's situation in life? If everything stays the same, the Democrats are guaranteed to get 90% of the black vote. That means if you're a black voter, if I'm thinking, let me put my pro-black hat on. If I was a pro-black, I'll be thinking, damn, that means we have to drive the incentive. That means we have to make it where the Democrats will be like, damn, we're going to lose the black vote if we don't do this. But the black community don't have the foresight or the knowledge base, as at least not a large percentage of us anyway, to actually make that happen. This is why Malcolm X said, if you vote Democrat, you're a political chump and a traitor to your race. Because if you keep voting for a party over and over and over again, you keep putting them first and they put you last, you're a chump. Facts. And conservatives are saying, hey, man, look over here at the Republican side, man. You can do a lot over here. It's just you got to do for yourself. They're not going to just hand it to you. You got to take the opportunities yourself. Because the Republicans are like, hey, here's the water. You choose if you want to come over here and drink the water. While the Democrats are, they're going to shove that water in your face and say, here you go. Here's some crumbs we'll give you. You don't have to move anywhere. We'll bring the food to you. That's the Democratic Party. Right? Hey, Frederick Douglass, bro, that man changed my life. When I did Black History on him, I never was the same since that day. Self-reliance is key. Self-reliance is key for any voting bloc in America today, even Americans itself. Because at the end of the day, if you have a, because at the end of the day, politicians' biggest want in life is to remain in power. So if they know that all they have to do is kiss your butt, play into your confirmation bias, black people, and they'll get your vote, aka pander to you. I got hot sauce in my purse. Hillary Clinton, remember? Anyone remember that? Hillary Clinton? I got hot sauce in my purse. Oh, you pandering to black folks. Yeah. Is it working? It worked. She got 88% of the black vote. Bruh. So, hey, I digress. Let's get into the Larry Elder. Larry Elder is going to break down the truth about Black History Month. Let's get into it.
Now, remember when Morgan Freeman said this about Black History Month?
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why?
Yep.
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Exactly.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on.
I remember this interview. I don't know how old I was as a kid. I think I was 6, 7 years old. I was like, yeah, you going to regulate my history to a month? All right, this is where I get the idea that I'm just a man that happens to be black. That's because of Morgan Freeman, my dog.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
Oh, no. What happened? Nah, it'll be back. I had to reload.
Oh. Why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month.
Oh, my God, bro.
Black history is American history.
Exactly. What happened to that? Now, if Morgan Freeman say this, he might get canceled. He might just get canceled, guys. If Morgan Freeman sit here and said that Black History, American history is Black history, I don't need Black History Month. They might cancel his butt if he say that now, bruh.
We're gonna get rid of racism.
Stop talking about it.
Exactly, bruh. In 2023, racism was on life support, bruh. It's just people, because end of the day, the race hustlers need it. I'm telling you. People need these issues to stay relevant, right? Rescuing American history from revisionists and race hustlers. They need it. Race hustlers need it. It's the same thing I just finished doing a video on Jane Elliott. These people need that hustle to exist. They have a conflict of interest for these problems to continue to fester in our society. It's not in their personal best interest to allow these things to die. This is why they keep talking about it. This is why they keep making something a race issue when it's not a race issue. This is why they try to mix culture with race. Trying to say that saving money, investing, showing up on time is white behavior. This is why they do this stuff. To try to show you learned helplessness, which I covered earlier in my video. They want to try to tell you that you're helpless because of your skin color. That you can't help to do something because of the color of your skin. You can't help but showing up late, Kenny, because you're a black man. You can't help but to steal, kill, and hurt people because you're a black man. You're supposed to do that. That's black behavior. Not being able to talk standardized English is black behavior, black habits. And we shouldn't shun you for that. We should make society, we should force society to embrace that. You're trying to let low performing black people stay comfortable, but that's not what's good for them. But that causes dependence. Yo, craziness, bro. Yeah, but it is, bro. It is because we're black, bro. That's what they want to make it. They want to make it be like, I can't pass math because I'm black. Imagine that. I'm telling you, Thomas Sowell said it best. A lot of black people, they don't want accomplishments because accomplishments require constant discipline to maintain. What black people want in our society today, they want an alibi. They want to be able to use their race as an alibi. Something didn't go their way is because I'm black. I don't have $1 million in my bank account, it's because I'm black. The banker didn't want to give me a loan because I'm black. They just want an alibi because with an alibi, you don't have to work hard to maintain the alibi. But with accomplishments, you have to work hard every day to maintain the accomplishments. Well, it's just path of least resistance. Which would you pick? Facts. I digress, dog.
I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
Well, we did a video about what experts don't tell you during Black History Month.
Now, maybe Black History Month wouldn't be so bad if they actually taught black history. Here are a few things that blacks are misled about: slavery, gun control, and the minimum wage. First, slavery. Now, when I studied slavery in high school, I assumed, the way a lot of people do, that slavery was something that just happened to black people in Africa.
One of the sad things is that we talk in this country as if slavery was something unique to the United States or to blacks and whites. And in point of fact, slavery was one of the oldest institutions among human beings. They go back as far as there is recorded history.
Yeah, like human history, bro. This is what I'm saying. We're all human here. We're all capable of great evil, unspeakable evil. But to sit here and pretend only white people are capable of slavery, only white people are capable of colonizing and taking over a spot, bruh. When this video gets to the African part, bruh, I'm like, oh, bruh, they don't teach you about black history, right? We're supposed to teach all of black history, but no. You want to mix certain things, and you want to get mad when people point out other history that you don't like. That's what it seems like black history has turned into. Black history has turned into a means of weaponizing a certain segment of history and using it as a battering ram to get your entitlements or what your wish list to feel justified in your own personal gain. I digress.
And in every single part of the world, Polynesians enslaved other Polynesians. For most of history, people enslaved people who were the same race as themselves for the simple reason that they simply didn't have the resources to go to another continent and take people from another continent and move them en masse someplace else.
Now, slavery could not have happened without the complicity of African chieftains who sold Africans not just to European slavers, but to Muslim slavers as well.
But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. They viewed the people they sold not as fellow Africans, but criminals, debtors, or prisoners of war.
Where's all the Pan-Africans at? Oh, we're Pan-African. I love Africa. Okay, look what they did to your ancestors, but you love Africa. Okay, bro. See, they don't have that same resentment or grievance for Africa like they do for American. I don't know why. You were prisoners of war, right? Your fellow people, you're tribal, right? One tribe, you were an enemy of, like, yo, people want to sit here and act like that we were all like, oh, happy Gungori, we were all kumbaya, and the white people just came and just raided villages and take people. No, that wasn't the case. You were warring tribes, just like in any nation. Just like white people fight other white people, Africans fight other Africans. Just like right now, black on black crime, 5 times more likely. My butt, if someone told me, hey, Kenny, if someone told you guys, hey, Kenny got killed today, right? 5 times, there's a chance that it was likely by a black man and no one else. Because blacks attack each other 5 times more than other people attack each other. And then you want to sit here and make me think that in Africa, we were all kumbaya. Oh, the white man came in and just colonized us. Yeah, okay. Maybe after, but during that, them Africans was benefiting off of the slave trade. But I don't hear no reparations talks for them. I digress, bro.
From rival tribes. By selling them, kings enriched their own realms and strengthened them against neighboring enemies. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result.
Imagine that. behavior, bruh. Yo, this is some craziness, bruh. So pretty much they looked at each other as a commodity. They're like, hey, may the strongest win. The weakest one, hey, you're a slave. And we're going to trade you in for some goods and services. But it's America's fault for slavery. Okay.
To defend
Everybody was practicing it. Everyone was doing it.
themselves from slave raids, neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent.
Did you know that Muslim slavers took more blacks out of Africa than did European slavers? The Muslim slave trade began centuries earlier and continued long after the European slave trade ended.
No, they don't care about that. The truth is, Black Americans, African Americans in America only cared about slavery in America, right? But they don't care about but they want to virtue signal like it's really about slavery when it's not. It's just, hey, I know I can gain from America. That's why I'm focusing on America and not Africa, because Africa is a continent, and I don't even have to trace down where they're going for all this stuff, bro. Look, this is the kind of thing. This is why I want to homeschool my kid, because at the end of the day, I understand this. History is about narratives, and you can paint any narrative you want with any history, because every culture, every group of people have done atrocities in their history, and you could use that to beat them over the head with it. I can find something on Black people. Oh, look at the African Americans. Ever since they came here, crimes have been out of the roof. Here's the facts: 13% of the population, but you commit 50% of homicides in the United States. 85% of interracial crimes are perpetrated by Black criminals. Asian people experience hate crime at a disproportionate rate by Black people than any other group of race of people in America. People can make the same argument, and Black people will cry and say that's racism. But going around and telling white people that they're inherently racist isn't. It's craziness. It's just you just want privilege. It's not equality y'all want. Y'all want privilege. But y'all know y'all can't be open about that. So y'all try to mask it with stuff like this.
Slavery, yes, during the 9th up to the 13th century, slavery was still very much an Islamic phenomenon as compared to the West. Of course, there was ancient slavery in many other societies, but in terms of chattel slavery, in terms of slavery as an institution, that was profitable. That was very much still an Arab Islamic preserve until the West came in sometime from the 15th, 16th century onwards.
Just how extensive was this Arab Muslim slave trade of Africans?
Slavery was a very important part of Islamic expansion in West Africa, and in fact in the Sudan and from the...
On the continent of Africa, in Sudan, them boys had slaves. But y'all crying, ain't y'all, where y'all at though? Oh, my ancestors. Come on, bro. Y'all only care about things that y'all can personally gain from. And then y'all want to get mad when I call people who want reparations out on their morality, saying, "Hey, you trying to extort your ancestors the same way these slave owners extorted them in the past. Now you're trying to benefit off of their suffering." Y'all want to cry in my comment section. But this is the hard facts. And you want to know why Arabs are not dealing with reparation arguments from the descendant of slaves? You'll find out in a couple of minutes why.
The very earliest period of Islamic penetration into Africa, it started by buying, purchasing slaves and trading in slaves, and then it went on from purchasing to raiding for slaves and capturing slaves deliberately, especially mainly Black Africans, and transporting them into North Africa and into Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, and onwards to the Ottoman Empire to Turkey.
So this whole colonizer thing, like, in the Roots, I forgot what movie it was, where they show white people going in the hot African sun and kidnapping Black people. That can't happen, because the medicine wasn't at the time where white people were able to survive the climate of Africa. So that means Arabs actually pulled more slaves out of Africa, because they look at the landmass. It's just it was convenient for them to just make the long trip over, grab some slaves, and come out. But y'all want to make it seem like America was the worst atrocitors, the worst offenders of slavery. When you hear about what these Arabs did to their slaves, bro, you'll be happy your ancestors got enslaved in America. I'm just talking from a historical point of view. I'm taking my own personal feelings out of it. I'm just calling it how I see it. And I think that's what we lack in our culture today. We're too much in our feelings to actually observe what we see in reality. That's it.
So slavery was a very endemic part of Islamic interaction with Africa. And in West Africa, the jihad's period of the 18th and 19th century involved massive slave raiding and slave trading. And many of the slaves that were captured and sent and sold and taken into the transatlantic slave trade, most of those who were doing the raiding at the time were Muslim communities because they were the dominant tribes. So a lot of that happened. That is not to say that non-Muslim communities were involved in raiding, but the dominant tribes were the Muslim communities that were doing the raiding at the time.
Now, I've heard that Muslim slavers and Muslim slave owners treated slaves better than did European slavers and European and American slave owners. But is that true?
Yeah, these are the myths. Like it's just because people want to make America seem like the bad guy, so they feel more justified in wanting, the secret sauce, reparations. That's what they want. Oh, we gotta make America look like the worst thing since sliced bread. So we're gonna make everyone else. Oh no, everyone did a better job at maintaining their slaves in America. Okay, did Americans do this?
One of the themes I explored in my book is this perception that Muslims treated their slaves much more humanely than the Western slave trade. And what I found out in my own research was that that is not necessarily the case, and that there were very harsh treatments of slaves by Muslim groups. It was just a done deal at the time. And one of the key differences I looked at in my book whereas slaves taken to the West were able to marry and reproduce and have their families, and you can still find large populations of African Americans today in North America and in the Caribbean, you go to the Islamic world and you find very few black remnants of the slave trade, which was very massive. And one of the reasons is that many of the male black slaves taken into the Islamic world were castrated as eunuchs.
Imagine that. So they don't have to deal with a reparation argument. They're like, the Arabs were like, nah, we're gonna castrate them. Imagine that. But America treated their slaves like garbage. They were allowed to have families on the slave plantations. Yeah, slave owners took advantage of their families. Yes, but you rather that, or you rather have the treatment that the Arabs gave the blacks over there, the slaves over there in the Arab countries. But they want to put out this narrative that Arabs treated their slaves more humane than Americans. Really? Where's this at? This is what I'm saying. History is starting to become this thing where people want to paint narratives and create perceptions about people to fit in a viewpoint that they want people to bring about. And this is why media is so dangerous now. Media can make the guilty innocent and the innocent guilty. Roots is the drama that really spun this propaganda. Exactly. Roots was unfounded, but people still sprout that as truth. That's how important media is. And I'm thinking the only way you can counter media is with other alternative media. The only way you can fight against the 1619 project is to fight it with the 1776 United project, right? You have to counter it, because at this point you can't leave people to their own devices, because this is what's going to happen. Nowadays, at this point, I'm starting to think about the only resolution we could probably get to with history is to, when history is being taught, that you have to teach both perspectives on history and let the students come to their own conclusions about it, instead of trying to feed them this narrative of, oh, look at the 1619 project, this is truth. Hey, I'm done.
Which meant that they could not, of course, reproduce. And the other factor is that many of the women were taken as concubines by their slave masters, and they gave birth to mixed races, and they were very much absorbed into the society. So you don't have black slave kind of descendants in the Muslim world as you would in North America And part of the reason is the castration and the way the slaves were treated.
Now, slavery ended in the West, in America, not until after the Civil War. But what about the Arab Muslim slave trade? When did it end? In fact, has it ended?
Slavery persisted in Islamic countries far, far longer than it did in the West. The West abolished slavery long before the Islamic countries ever abolished slavery. And they did so under a lot of pressure from colonial governments and from Western governments and from all kinds of activist groups. And in fact, the Saudi Arabia, for instance, abolished slavery in 1961 or 1960 thereabout.
Wow.
Whereas Mauritania abolished slavery in 1981. Ooh. And these were done on paper, and a lot of it.
Imagine, these countries been around longer than America, yet they took longer than America to abolish slavery. But people want to sit here and act like America was the worst offender of this. I'm going to keep spinning this in the face because America is the youngest country in the world. America is. So if you look at from how long it took from the founding of a country to end slavery, America was the fastest. Hell, I think Brazil still had slaves even after America. The arguments a lot of people like to use is that slaves built this country. America got great wealth from slave labor. Or if that's true, how come Brazil is not richer than America? Because they had slavery longer than America did. But Brazil ain't as rich as America, even though they benefited from slave labor more than America did. Right? When you put these theories to the test, you start seeing that the math ain't mathing. And this is the problem with a lot of people who wants to spin narratives. They don't want facts and evidence to actually back up their claims. They just want a narrative. They just want you to believe those narratives and act upon that belief. This is why they get so mad about people who point out facts that they don't like. Instead of calling you a liar, instead of saying you're wrong, here's why, they rather call you names, smear you, and try to delegitimize you because you want to point this stuff out. But I digress,
It's still being done. In practice, there are still a lot of slaves in Muslim countries. And the Sudan, during the Civil War, there was a lot of slave raiding going on done by the Arab Muslims in the north against the enemies and the Christian Africans in the south. So even up to the 90s and this century, there was still capturing of young African men, boys in the Sudan for sale.
Wow.
So slavery continues, even though it has been abolished on paper in many Muslim countries.
Yeah, the gun control one, I didn't know much about the gun control one, but it makes sense, right? Because the whole argument for people who, like the black 2A guys, they were saying, like, how do you lynch a group of people that are armed? You can't. So how lynching was a thing if people were, like, blacks were naturalized citizens? Because in the Democratic South, by the way, they restrict the ownerships of black gun owners, and you see how they took advantage of that. And then when they were worried about, conservatives think government's going to be tyrannical, well, black people experience it firsthand how in some ways it can be. Imagine conservatives. Here's a scenario, conservatives. Imagine that Joe Biden got his way and he got gun control, and you got Antifa out here lynching conservatives because you don't agree with their mess about your kids being transitioned into a so-called woman, even though they're a boy. You'll get destroyed. You see that the violent attacks. Andy Ngo is a prominent example of the Antifa's violence. And they don't even get held accountable. Now, if you were strapped, Antifa wouldn't even dare attack you. But when a gang of people like Antifa, right, like the KKK, knows that you don't have any guns, that you're a sitting duck, they'll come and attack you. Craziness, bro. You create an incentive by the policies that they push. People need to understand that. If you put a policy where, hey, no law-abiding citizens allowed to own guns, you tell all the non-law-abiding people, if I have a gun, that means I have a big advantage and I have massive leverage over the common individual in society. I can take advantage of them. They don't want to account for that. But, I've been rambling a little bit too much.
Now, gun control. Liberals, especially those living in the inner city where crime is high, often demand further gun control legislation.
We fought a good fight earlier this year, but we came up short. And that means we've got to get back up and go back at it, because as long as there are those who fight to make it as easy as possible for dangerous people to get their hands on guns, then we've got to work as hard as possible for the sake of our children. We've got to be ones who are willing to do more work to make it harder.
So mass shootings only account for 4% of gun deaths in America. That's what they want to ban all guns for a 4% instance, right? Public schools are the biggest targets of school shooters, mainly because they know those are gun-free zones. Incentives, remember I'm talking about incentives? Show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome. If you tell me, hey, this place is not allowed to have guns, but this private school may or may not have an armed security guard, if I'm a school shooter, I'm going for the public school, because public school is a gun-free zone. That's the policy. Oh, I know no one in there, in that whole building don't have a school. So easy target. That's human nature. You understand? Like, end of the day, a bully doesn't pick on somebody that's capable of fighting back. A bully picks on someone that can't fight back. That's school shooters. But the Democrats don't want to acknowledge this. They want to keep pushing their gun control. I already showed you how gun control is racist based on racist laws. The KKK wanted the black people to be unable to protect themselves, so that way they can go and lynch them. And when they saw a black person, they're like, oh yeah, he don't have a gun, because of the laws are in place. They made black people sitting ducks in the southern South, in the Democratic South. Black people were sitting ducks in there because of gun laws, gun restrictions placed on them, and they had to fight tooth and nail to get their right to bear arms in the Democratic South. And now today in 2023, they try to pretend, oh, we're doing this for your protection, for your good at heart. Okay, yeah, okay. Especially with the defund police movement that Kevin Moser just pointed out. You want to take away my right to bear arms and also defund the police, bruh. You asking for the criminals to run the city. You asking for the mafia to resurrect itself again. We'll give you a protection fee, ain't? You asking for it. That's why Rudy Giuliani won in New York, because y'all let New York become a hellhole, and we're seeing it again. Crime rates are like what? Are higher compared to red states in blue cities. But I digress, right? Because at the end of the day, you show me the outcomes. You don't show me your intentions. You show me the outcomes, and it seems like Democratic policies give bad outcomes that hurt black people. I'm done.
Are black students taught that the gun control movement began in this country as a means to make sure newly freed black slaves did not get their hands on guns? In the most infamous Supreme Court decision ever, Dred Scott, the Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney said, if blacks are anything other than chattel property, why, they may be able to get their hands on guns.
It was a horrible, racist Southern Democrat judge named Roger Taney, and he determined that Dred Scott could not count for more than 3/5 of a person. Why? Because Dred Scott couldn't have a firearm. In fact, Judge Taney later noted, and this is in a chapter in my first book, Hands Off My Gun, that in order for him to give Dred Scott full citizenship and count him as an actual law-abiding American, that meant that Dred Scott would have the, quote, full liberty to have and to bear arms. And Judge Taney couldn't have that.
Next, Democrats love them some minimum wage, don't they?
Tom Steyer wants a higher minimum wage. The billionaire says that he would propose paying workers at least $22 an hour if he wins the White House. Steyer floated the idea.
I'm speaking to Trump. Yeah, that's what it is. The Dred Scott. Oh my God, bro. Most Democrats. Sorry, it was like what 5-1 ratio. I forget. But Democrats don't want to take credit for that. Why not? We teach them Black history, right? Oh, they just tell us the Dred Scott decision happened, but they don't tell you, okay, what party was responsible for the Dred v. Scott decision? The Democrats. No one want to tell you that the Northern Democrats was in favor for it. They say, hey, this is the law. This is the law. Then this is how it should be. They want to talk about how the Northern Democrats campaigned against Abraham Lincoln, calling him an end lover, a Black American, claiming that he wanted to marry a Black woman, right? Doing all this marketing smears. Because at the end of the day, look, doesn't that sound like the Democrats today? Democrats never change their playbook. Smear your opponent, call them names, label them as much as you can to make them seem like they're the worst thing based on the current sentiment of today. But hey, I digress, right? Because at the end of the day, minimum wage hurts black people because at the end of the day, black people, and this is an observation I'm making based on 2023, black people don't have the education level to demand higher skilled jobs. That means they congregate at the lower skilled jobs. If you raise the minimum wage, you force the employers to look for a more qualified candidate. And black people ain't going to make it most of the time. But I'm done.
Yesterday during a campaign stop in South Carolina.
Now, during Black History Month, are black students taught that the minimum wage movement in this country began as a means to make sure that blacks who are willing to work for less did not take jobs away from whites who are unwilling to work for less?
Yes, it was a protectionist strategy, right? And minimum wage laws are still a protectionist strategy by the Democratic Party because only mega corporations can afford to pay higher minimum wage. Small businesses, like let's say if I start a restaurant and the minimum wage is $22 an hour, I'm out of business. I don't have any starting capital to work off of, right? I'll have to hire people under the table to get away with this. I'll have to cut hours, right? It makes it a lot harder for me as a average American citizen to start a business. You effectively, like they usually do, gatekeep for bigger, already established businesses. This is why big businesses and mega corporations donate to the Democratic Party, because they know when the Democratic Party pushes more laws, more regulation, they know that's more barrier of entry for their competitors or an upstart. It makes it harder for an upstart to come in and take over their market share. Rigging the game, essentially. This is corporatism. If you know what that is, that's a form of socialism when corporate interest mingles with government policy. You see it today. But you know, Democrats' main tactic, when I can't get my way, smear the other side as villains. Show them that they don't have no compassion, they don't have no heart. When all the other side is saying, hey, logically, this is the results. We're setting people up for failure. Why give them sweet lies? They need the bitter truth because like medicine, it's good for you. But it seems like America and our culture today, we don't want to hear the truth. We want to hear what we want to hear. This is why we got echo chambers left and right. And all we asking for is, America, regardless of how you view the solution, we should all agree what the problem is. And we should all agree what didn't work. Minimum wage don't work. Sorry. Minimum wage stifles out competition. The Democrats will pretend that they're anti-monopolies, but effectively creating these laws create monopolies. You'll get an Amazon. You saw it during the pandemic. Amazon got special treatment. They were allowed to stay open. Other businesses had to remain closed. Bruh. This is why regulation is bad, bruh. Never waste a never waste they say never let a I forgot what it's called. Never let a good disaster go to waste. I forgot what it's called. I know what you're talking about, Kevin, but let's get back into the video.
By the 1960s, many African Americans were employed as farmers. This changed in 1967 when the government extended the minimum wage laws to American farmers as part of the war on poverty. Black farmers who were accustomed to making a modest $3.50 per day were now legally required to be paid $1 per hour, a tremendous increase in wages.
So imagine that. Even when the minimum wage law was $1 per hour, black farmers during the 1967? Sorry, let me go back. Yeah, in the 1960s, they were still paid $2.50 more than the federal wage. But Democrats want to sit here and act like, corporations will price cut you. No, that's not how it works in capitalism, socialist. In capitalism, you're competing against other businesses for that labor. Remember, employment is a two-way street. Hey, I sell you my labor for a certain price and you benefit off of it at a corporation level. But if another corporation is willing to pay me $4 an hour and you're only going by the bare minimum, I'm going to go to the better offer. The two businesses still have to compete for my labor. That's how capitalism works because it's voluntary, at will employment. Libs don't understand this sometimes, bro. At least before you criticize capitalism, understand how capitalism actually works. But hey, I digress.
Paid $1 per hour, a tremendous increase in wages. The effect of this law was immediate and undeniable. An estimated 25,000 farm workers were put out of work in the Mississippi Delta alone. Black farmers were not oblivious to the cause and effect. That dollar an hour ain't worth nothing, said the wife of one day laborer. It would have been better if it had been 50 cents a day if you work every day. 50 cents per day, of course, was a lower wage than what her husband would have been earning prior to the law. Her point was clear. The federal minimum wage law destroyed their ability to earn a living. End of quote.
The first minimum wage law in our country was the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931. And the Davis-Bacon Act says that all workers in federally funded or federally assisted construction projects.
I'll be back, guys. I had to get
the
my
prevailing
son.
wage. And if you look on page 6513 of the Congressional Record on March 31st, 1931, you'll see congressional testimony where congressmen will say, see that contractor over there? He brings cheap colored labor up from the South, he puts them in cabins, and it's labor of that sort that has to compete, that white Americans are competing against.
One of the things that my friends on the left think is just grand is the minimum wage. And 100 years ago, the minimum wage came into being in the United States, state by state, and its declared purpose was to keep immigrants, women, blacks, and Chicanos out of the labor force, to drive them out entirely. Newspaper editorials, the economics profession, they all said, oh boy, this is good for the Anglo-Saxon race.
Thus, the consequences of minimum wage rates have been almost wholly bad, to increase unemployment and to increase poverty. Moreover, the effects have been concentrated on the groups that the do-gooders would most like to help. The people who have been hurt most by minimum wage laws are the blacks. I have often said that the most anti-Negro law on the books of this land is the minimum wage rate.
Got a question for you.
Yeah, so they sit here and pretend that a lot of these laws here are set here to protect black people, when in fact it did more harm than good, right? So let me see, because I ain't trying to hear the advertisement. All right, now we're back. Let's get back into it.
Financial markets had their worst day since the start of the pandemic.
Tonight, the alarming. What if you can invest your money back? Best? Why?
I think we're done with this video actually. So now
or call 888.
Yeah. So and then the rest of the video is just talking about with the interview with someone else, I forget. But now we're gonna get to the reparations part, and I think the reparation part after this, I'll call it a day. I'll call it a night. So 16-minute video, and I think this is a video I think a lot of people need to see, right? Yeah. And before I go into it, let's see what people have to say in the chat. Rush Limbaugh taught me all of this, U.S. history, CD 1990, God bless his soul. RFK's a true anti-establishment Democratic candidate. Powers that be are trying to shut him down. Yeah, so here's my take on, I did a video on the historical patterns of American politics. And it's been my view that RFK should run as an independent, right? And some people who would like RFK always try to criticize me and say, oh, Kenny, you're just doing this so the Republicans can win. But it'll show a contrast, honestly, that imagine this. Imagine RFK runs as an independent. Trump likely to be the nominee for the Republican ticket. Biden runs in the Democratic ticket. And imagine the two people with the most votes are RFK and Trump, and Biden's like dead last. Oh my God, that'll destroy the Democrats' like perception and narrative that they've been throwing around in America. Because end of the day, I think majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run again. Only 43% of Democrats want Biden to run. So that shows you that Democrat parties are looking for someone new, right? People in the middle, right? If you're a moderate, independents say they don't want Biden or Trump to run. They want a new candidate. In my view, if RFK runs as an independent, he has a great chance to win the election. he has a better chance of winning the election than trying to run as a Democrat. That's just my view on the thing, right? This is just my unbiased take. I'm a Vivek guy. I like Vivek more. But if I'm looking at it like as an American, like a purely anti-establishment voter, I want the anti-establishment person to win. The only thing that I can't guarantee anything for RFK if he runs as an independent. But the one thing I can guarantee if RFK runs as an independent is that Biden doesn't win. That's the only guarantee I could put. Right? So, Tim Scott, Clarence Thomas, hey, they're good black conservatives. I'll give them that. But Tim Scott, I don't know about him just yet. But I digress. Let's get back into the reparations after my little intermission with the chat. So let's get back into the video. So reparations, who should pay? And this is kind of some of the thoughts that this is kind of what woke me up kind of to some of the information that exists out there. And here's another thing about this whole slavery thing. People want to sit here and act like reparations is a new argument. They already know who is a descendant of slaves and who is not, right? Every U.S. president up until 2023, except one person, can you guess who? His name rhymes with rump. Trump is the only U.S. president that is not a descendant from a slave owner, who was not a slave owner or a descendant of a slave owner. Donald Trump. Obama was, though. Damn, that's crazy. The first he's not black. The first the first non-white president is a descendant of a slave owner. Craziness. But Trump isn't. I know that hurt Democrats to say that. Kamala Harris is a descendant of a slave owner too, right? But they don't, Democrats don't like to point that out, right? Democrats were the one who stopped the reparations in the first place for the ancestors. When Abraham Lincoln was going about to give reparations to the people, to the slaves that actually experienced slavery, Democrats messed it up. Democrats shot and killed Abe, right? And then Abraham Lincoln's Democratic VP stopped all efforts to give reparations to the slaves. So Democrats are the main reason why reparations was never reciprocated back to the black people. But here we are in 2023, black people voting Democrat, and then you want to get mad at other black people who don't vote Democrat and call them Uncle Tom Coon, sellout, and all this stuff, as if my allegiance is to a party because of my skin color. Asinine. But I digress.
About reparations, a skeptical President Barack Obama in 2016 told reparations proponent Ta-Nehisi Coates that it would divide the country. Obama said, quote, "It is hard to think of any society in human history in which a majority population has said that as a consequence of historic wrongs, we are now going to take a big chunk of the nation's resources over a long period of time to make that right. So the bottom line is that it's hard to find a model in which you can practically administer and sustain political support for these kinds of efforts." End of quote.
True, right? True facts, right? That's the politics of it. Because end of the day, this is not the first time reparations has been made, right? There's actually a bill in the House, I believe, that a congressman actually wrote up, and it got almost no support in Congress. But people want to sit here and say, "Oh, let me get my reparations." No, you're not. Maybe at a state level it's possible, but from a federal level, oh hell no. You thought y'all riots was bad? Try to make people who never were slave owners pay for the sins of people who never were slaves. Oh, you're gonna get a riot. That's like convicting a black man for a crime he never do, just because 50% of homicides are done by black men, that he has to take responsibility for it. Craziness. But hey, that's the argument these reparations people are making.
That's what Obama said in 2016. And a majority of blacks support reparations today. Hopefully not the approach of this young lady.
The Q-tip people are the last ones to ever talk about somebody stealing anything. Y'all wouldn't be in this country had it not been for y'all stealing it. But y'all are more focused on people looting and trying to get necessities and things that they need. And yes, a TV is a necessity thing. Then the people who are literally freezing to death in their own home, freezing to death outside because this city did not shut down the way it should have. Byron Brown want to get on here and talk about, we told y'all, we knew this was going to happen. But why didn't you close businesses when you should have? Why you got everybody rushing home at noon when the And that was just the beginning of the story. So if you don't live in Buffalo, even if you do live in Buffalo, you feel like you're better than because people are out here stealing and you would never. First of all, if you are a Mayo monster, that is how your ancestors got everything, from stealing. People are out here trying to get
Mayo monster. Racism with more racism. Right? But these are the people that want reparations, bro. People like this hurt y'all case. Y'all realize that, right? When people say, oh, these black people are just using the fact that they're descendant of slaves to extort people for more money for their own personal gain, you prove them right every time. Saying that a TV is a necessity. People will actually believe you if you said it was food that you were stealing. Maybe people have some sympathy for you. But you sitting here with all this entitlement. You sitting here talking about, colonizers, that's how they got everything. That's how any human got everything. You look at the Greeks. You see the Nordic people? Bruh, it's a competition. It's like you winning. Like it's divide and conquer. Humans are a competitive species. We come here and we try to... I already started talking about Africans, how they conquered each other, made each other prisoners of war. But you want to gloss over that fact, right? Because black people are perfect. It's because y'all black. That's why. Y'all perfect because y'all black, huh? Y'all ish don't sink because y'all black, huh? Right? That's what I'm talking about. They just want an alibi. Oh, if you white, you're bad. If you're black, you're good. That's how they want the game to be played. Asinine. But hey, this is the people who want reparations, right? And then when they get black people like me that say, no, y'all don't deserve nothing. Y'all want to be mad in the comment section. No, stay mad because this sentiments is only going to go down. The case for reparations, the longer it goes on, the worse of a case you will have. Because the strongest people who would have gotten reparations were the people who suffered slavery personally. Second, maybe their children. After that, you got no shot. Sorry. You got no shot. No sympathy, nothing. Because we should see this, you're just trying to extort folks for your own inadequacies. But I digress.
get toilet paper. People are out here trying to get, just small little food from Family Dollar, and y'all got to capitalism. Steal everything that you need, babe. Because at the end of the day, this city continuously fails us whenever we have any type of emergency. Byron, do better, babe.
Did she say the Q-tip people? I think she did. Now,
and then in Chicago, they'll wonder why businesses leave their neighborhoods, and they're saying, "Oh, you're gonna starve us out. Where we're gonna get our groceries?" You just said F capitalism, right? Okay, why would a capitalist stay in a system that in an area that doesn't like him because of what he brings to the table, right? Black people want to sit here and pretend they have leverage when they don't have anything. This is my problem with y'all. Black-owned businesses, okay, where's the black-owned store? Because at the end of the day, these black people will do the same thing they just did to that white business in Walmart. It don't matter if it was Walmart that was the grocery store or a black-owned Walmart. Let's call it Black Mark. If it was Black Mark, Super Center, got TVs, got groceries, got everything black people need. They'll rob the store the same way they did Walmart. And they'll sit here and act like it's in their right to do it because of some oppression they did never personally face. Asinine. Hey, look, I can't tolerate that stuff, bro. I can't tolerate people who want something for nothing, especially when they never experienced the very thing they claim to want restitution for. Craziness. Repair. Yes, it's repair. Repair for what? If I did harm to you and you sue me, that's reparations. Okay, because I've done a wrong to you. I personally done a wrong to you. But for somebody that has never experienced slavery, expecting restitution from someone who never was a slave owner, all because he was descended from a supposed slave owner, bruh, that's like punishing the son for the sins of the father. That's not right. It's not morally right. Hey, but I digress.
A leading proponent of reparations and the author of a very influential piece advocating reparations is Mr. Coates, the person who interviewed Barack Obama.
It's been said, I think, or alluded to repeatedly throughout this conversation that somehow wealthy African Americans are immune to these effects. But in addition to the wealth gap that's cited, one thing that folks should keep in mind is that quote-unquote wealthy African Americans are not the equivalent of quote-unquote wealthy white Americans in this country.
You're right. Right? Just like I can say, a white player is not as good as a black player, right? They're not the same. That's the obvious difference, right? Black people tend to be more athletic than white players. It's a fact. You have a biological advantage. It's a fact. So now you're looking for equal outcomes? That's an exception, not the rule. But he's looking for exceptions. And if I ask, look, because this is based on behavior, if I look at the kind of businesses that wealthy black people start versus what wealthy white people start, you're going to see the disparities. Doesn't tech industry pay more money than non-tech industry? If I'm a retail entrepreneur and I'm selling t-shirts, I'm starting the Black Supreme, right? And my homeboy at Silicon Valley started a tech company. Who gonna get to $1 billion first? The tech company guy. What are the percentage of black tech billionaires? I'm waiting. The only one that's an African American is Elon Musk, but y'all don't claim him. He's not black. So, like, what you comparing for? What you crying for? Making false comparisons and then acting like you're making a point. And only ignorant people will clap for that. I'm sorry. That's the hard facts right there. This is how the black folk get swindled. This is why Malcolm X called people who vote Democrat chumps. Because y'all fall for it every time. Because y'all don't know anything better yourselves. But then y'all want to get mad at me.
The average African-American family in this country making $100,000, which is, decent money, actually lives in the same kind of neighborhood that the average white family making $35,000 a year lives in. That is totally tied to the legacy of enslavement and Jim Crow. And the input and the idea in the mind that white people and black people are somehow deserving of different things.
Yeah. Because end of the day, I'm not conservatives or people who don't believe in the whole like racial wealth gap. We're not saying that people deserve different things because they're white or black. We're saying that, hey, if you don't do the same work, you don't deserve the same outcome, right? If I start a tech company and I'm estimated, my business estimated worth to be $1 billion, and you start a retail company and it's only worth $600 million, and I happen to be black and you happen to be white, it's not because of our race that we have a different outcomes. It's because of the industry that we started our businesses in and where our wealth is tied to. People value technology more than they value retail. Simple. But he's going to make a racial argument about it. This is what I'm saying. It seems like these race hustlers, all they want is an alibi. They don't want achievement, because I'm arguing for, hey, black people, we want respect, we want value, we want to close the wealth gap. Let's go achieve something. But no, y'all want to blame something on your failures. There's a quote I read from Napoleon Hill. Success needs no apology and failure needs no alibi. And this is what it seems like the black community is trying to do, or people like Colts here is trying to do, is trying to just give failure an alibi. Black failure an alibi. That's what he's trying to do. But we'll continue.
If I injure you, the injury persists even after I actually commit the act. If I stab you, you may suffer complications long after that initial actual stabbing. If I shoot you, you may suffer complications long after that initial shooting. That's the case with African Americans. There are people well within the living memory of this country that are still suffering from the after effects of that.
Now, in a Rasmussen January 2021...
How many people are alive today that personally experienced slavery? They should all be dead right now. Who's 400 years old? Who Colt's talking to? Bruh. The argument is that white you should get it. Not your ancestors. Your ancestors had the biggest right to get it. But the Democrats stop it. Now you want to rehash that whole argument all over again. No, we missed the opportunity. Any of your ancestors wasn't stressing it. I showed you with Frederick Douglass. They had gratitude. They're like, yo, look, we got enough. That's all we need. But you want more than what your ancestors wanted. And they're the ones who actually suffered for it. Imagine that. You want it more than your ancestors. That's the argument we're having. And your ancestors is the one who has the most credibility to actually deserve reparations. And they're not here anymore. So that claim for reparations dies with them. But you want to benefit off their suffering, though. I can't imagine that. Imagine that. Like, before every person get their reparations, they see all the whips and all the suffering their ancestors get as they're receiving the reparations. And I would ask them, you think that's right? That look at you, cell phone in your hand, AC unit, right? You're watching movies, driving cars, having fun on TikTok all day, and you deserve the money. You get the money, but that person who actually went through slavery and oppression and suffering, they get nothing for it. But you got to benefit off the backs of their suffering. How is that moral? How is that good? How is that right? It's not. This is why reparations is unpopular. The only part this reparation argument is popular with is Democrats, because they know they can run on this. That's it. But I digress.
One survey 28% of likely voters supported reparations. Only 18% of Republicans, 35% of independents, but 60% of Democrats.
So look at this. So reparations is partisan right here. This is why I can make the claim that most people don't like reparations. Right? But instead of accepting this, Democrats think they're just going to push it. This is why I say only Democratic cities, the more likely case that reparations is going to happen is reparations is going to happen on a Democratic state level, like California, Chicago. They're more likely to pass reparations than a federal level because the independents don't support reparations. Republicans damn sure don't support reparations, right? But Democrats support it though. But I digress. Let's continue with the video.
Likely voters support reparations. Now, according to conservative author Michael Medved,
you have a good weekend too, Kevin.
So many of today's non-black Americans are descendants of post-Civil War immigrants. As few as 5% of today's whites have what he called a generational connection to slavery. University of North Carolina historian and author of a book called...
Imagine that. Only 5% of whites have generational connection to slavery. Craziness. You think the reparations people want to hear that? Nope. They don't want to hear that. Most white people are descendants from immigrants. Facts. But you want taxpayers to pay for your reparations because that's where the money's gonna come from. This is why people don't like reparations. People who never were slave owners paying for people who never were slaves. And then to even make the argument even worse for the reparations, you want people that had no generational tie to slavery to pay for reparations. Good luck making that argument. But people who are entitled feel like they can make that argument. I digress though.
Soldiering in the Army of Northern Virginia, a statistical portrait of the troops who served under Robert E. Lee, estimates that 4.9% of the population, or 24.9% of households in slave states, owned slaves. Now get this. Of the free blacks living in the South, some were slave owners. Famed historian Carter G. Woodson found that in 1830, 3,776 free Negroes owned 12,907 slaves.
Free. That means these black people, like the free ones, because this narrative that when I bring the facts about black slave owners owning about 37,000 slaves, the free slaves the free blacks were people who were never slaves. Let me repeat that again. We're never slaves. And they own slaves. 12,000 of them. But black slave owners was purchasing their own family. Yeah, okay, bro. That's an assumption you're making. That's not facts. How likely it is that 3,000 free black people own 12,907 slaves and they all happen to be their families? What are the odds of that being true? Not likely. But this is the narrative people say to pretend that they're speaking on some moral high ground. Let's continue. These are the facts. This is not my only. This is not only my perception, not only my opinion. It's based on these facts, and you can't counter my opinion, or you can't make me change my opinion until you counter these facts. That's all I'm saying. You may not agree with how I see it, but you can't say You can't call me a liar. You can call me any name in your book. I don't care what you call me, but you ain't gonna call me a liar.
Historian Roger McGrath notes, quote, every one of the 13 states and most of the major cities that would become part of the Confederacy had substantial numbers of black slave owners. New Orleans, by both numbers and by proportion, had the most. A staggering 28% of free blacks in New Orleans owned slaves, end of quote. Those we call Native Americans also owned slaves.
Oh, but you stole this from stolen land. But the Indians had y'all ancestors enslaved too. So you calling reparations for them too? Bro, this is what I'm talking about, man. Narrative crafting, not based on any truth or no evidence, no nothing. Here you go, historian Roger McGrath. Hopefully I said his name right. Names, sources. There you go. Go look it up. Go find it out for yourself. Look at these claims. But white people, white supremacy, racism. America was founded on racism. Okay, if that's true, how can a minority Indians own another minority, black slaves? How can a black slave owner exist owning black slaves if America was a racist country and all black people's role in society was to be slaves? It seems like black people don't understand black history like they think they do. It's like they only focus on certain parts of black history. They focus on the slavery part, but they don't focus on, hey, you know, there are black people that never were slaves in this country, in the North, the free slaves, the free blacks. You know they own slaves too? Do you know in the 1620s, Anthony Johnson was the first slave owner? No, in 1619 they didn't talk about that, but they were supposed to give the truth about the founding of America because Anthony Johnson don't help 1619's race narrative. Imagine that. Your 1619 project. And then a conservative come in and say, hey, 1620, Anthony Johnson, first black slave owner. How you contend with this, with the argument that America was founded on racism when a black man was the first slave owner in 1620? Crickets. But black conservatives are pushing propaganda. Lies you tell yourself. Sorry. That's how I honestly feel, bro. I'm not apologizing for anything I know anymore. Because just because I know this stuff and you don't, doesn't make me wrong. But I digress. Let's continue.
McGrath writes, accompanying the Cherokee on their trail of tears were some 2,000 black slaves. They were put to work on Cherokee farms in the new tribal home, raising cotton, corn, and garden crops, and tending hogs and cattle. During the antebellum decade, slavery reached its peak among the 5 civilized tribes. The Cherokee, numbering only 20,000 themselves, owned nearly 5,000 black slaves. The Choctaw, 2,500. The Creeks, 2,000. And the Chickasaw and Seminole, about 1,000 each. To protect their slave property, the 5 civilized tribes, except for a few dissident factions, sided with the Confederacy when the Civil War erupted, end of quote. Now
you had Indians siding with the Confederacy to maintain their slaves. Craziness. And a lot of people like try to throw out this narrative that a lot of people in the South didn't agree with slavery. And the problem with that narrative is that the fact is that the slave owners had a lot of wealth and control over the political party. You know, the same way it is in 2023. Like corporations own the Democratic politicians. It was the same way with the Confederacy. They own a lot of power and sway in the Democratic Party. And that's a lot of property. Because they say what? Freeing the slaves would have lost a slave owner like almost $1 million. Because that was wealth being lost. Imagine someone said, hey, you can't own cars anymore. And you say, I just paid $3 million for my Ferrari. Now I can't own it. I lost ownership of that car. You wouldn't fight for that? I just spent $3.5 million and I'm not getting it back? Oh, of course you're going to go to war for that. Because they saw slaves as their property. They saw it as part of their property rights to have a slave, a living human being as property. That's what the Confederacy was fighting for. And people want to try to make this argument. Oh, people were wholly against the Civil War in the South. Sure they were, because they know they were going to have to die for the wishes of the elite. But that's the same thing with the Ukraine war. But y'all supporting that, Democrats? Oh, you want Putin to win? Well, you want Americans to die? That's what the conservatives should fire back at the Democrats when they open their mouth like that. Because it's rarely that the people who the war benefits actually suffers the loss of their life in the war. But hey, I digress, man.
Government did not own slaves. People did. Conservative writer Dinesh D'Souza estimates that no more than 10 Republicans, 10 out of 395,216 slave owners, according to an 1860 census, owned slaves.
1860.
The Ku Klux Klan was founded by Democrats. Congressional Democrats were overwhelmingly opposed to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. As a percentage of the party, more Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 than did Democrats.
Do they go into that much detail during Black History, or they just tell you, the Civil Rights Bill was signed by Lyndon B. Johnson, who was a Democratic president? That's all they'll tell you. When they teach you Black History, that's all they'll tell you, because they're trying to paint a narrative about how the Democrat president was the one who signed the Civil Rights Bill, the one that helped Black people in society. But they don't tell you how Lyndon B. Johnson had to go against his own party to do it, how he had to rely on Republicans to help him pass the bill. They don't have to tell you how Lyndon B. Johnson came back and said, hey, we can use this to have these N-words voting Democrat for 200 years. They don't tell you about that. Right? But they want to act like, LBJ had a great transformation. He went from being a racist Texan to being a social progressive, moral progressive, But then if you look at his history, there's no account of him saying, hey, I apologize for being part of the KKK. I apologize for my racist views on things. No, the year after, in 1965, I believe, he told his driver, hey, you're an N-word. You'll always be an N-word. And you better learn how to make it roll off your back, because that's all you'll ever be. He told his driver that in 1965, right after he signed the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. About LGBT. Oh, but he wasn't racist, Kenny. He changed his stripes. Oh, I don't see no evidence of that. In 1965, I believe he had a speech at Howard University, and he mentioned how you can't just make when he was advocating for his war on poverty, his Great Society Act, and how you can't make a man that just started being free. Pretty much, he was trying to make the argument that you can't make a man that just became free and just release him and expect him to compete with people who've been free all their lives. But he never wanted to mention what party put him in chains in the first place. The Democratic Party. You think he did that? No, of course not. He wouldn't admit. Democrats don't admit no wrongdoing. That was his chance to show how much of a conversion he made. But no, he didn't. All the racists did was change his stripes. He said, oh, I could use this to my political advantage, so I won't let these N-words know that it's my party's fault that they were they were chained in the first place. But I'm gonna act like I'm the one who freed them. It's politics as usual, right? But yeah, I digress. Let's continue with the video.
Maybe Democrats should sue themselves to pay for reparations. What's that? The great
commercial. So I'm gonna skip through the commercial. Yeah, but it's just ridiculous, man. Like people want to sit here and get mad at me because I point out like facts that doesn't fit their worldview or their confirmation bias, and then they want to get mad at me. I'm like, look, bro, you can be mad at me, but you can't call me a liar. It's based on reality. It's based on truth. You can't get mad at the truth. You only have two choices. You either accept it or you deny it. That's it. That's the only options you have. So hey, that's a personal problem. Let's continue with the video.
Congressional hearing on reparations made the following claim about slave-produced products. He said, and I'm quoting him, as historian Ed Baptiste has written, enslavement shaped every crucial aspect of the economy and politics of America so that by 1836, more than 600 million, almost half of the economic activity in the United States derived directly or indirectly from the cotton produced by the million-odd slaves, end of quote. Half of the economic activity? Coates credits the number to Cornell historian Ed Baptiste, but economics historian Phil Magnus says Baptiste is wildly off. The correct number of the slave-based economic activity was the mid to high single digits, not the 50% claim that Coates repeated. How did Baptiste get it wrong? Magnus wrote, Baptiste purports to add up the total value of economic activity that derived from cotton production, which at 77 million made up about 5% of the estimated gross domestic product of the United States in 1836.
Cooking the books. We haven't heard research race hustlers do that before. Huh. Like, this is what I'm talking about, painting narratives. Hey, fix this guy's challenge. Hey, he challenged it. This is what I'm looking for. When I make a claim, you say, hey, Kenny, that's an error because of this. According to this. This is how you debunk narratives.
Baptiste then committed a fundamental accounting error. He proceeded to double, even triple count intermediate transactions involved in cotton production. Things like land purchases for plantations, tools used for cotton production, transportation, insurance, and credit instruments used in each. Eventually, the 77 million became 600 million in Baptiste's accounting, or almost half of the entire antebellum economy of the U.S.
Falsifying evidence.
Explains there's a crucial problem with Baptiste's approach. The calculation of GDP is the value of final goods and services produced. The price of the final good already incorporates intermediate transactions that go into its production and distribution. Baptiste's numbers were not only wrong, they reflect a basic lack of understanding with the meaning and definition of GDP. Now, if American
wow, and these are the people y'all want me to take seriously. Oh, that's not right, Kenny. Those are right numbers. And I'm like, yo, he cooking the books. The guy just broke down how he cooked the books. He didn't understand what GDP was. He started adding up things. Oh, look at this transaction. Oh, he was buying a plantation. No, that wasn't the. Bro, look how far these people are willing to create a narrative. What they say? What judge like a man is dangerous according to what he will do for his ideals, and the most common thing a man will do for his ideals is lie. Isn't this the reparations has become these people's ideal? They'll lie to justify that half of the economy in the South was due to cotton. What? Due to slavery. What? Craziness.
Taxpayers pay reparations. Can they also sue Africa for its role in selling captured and enslaved Africans to Arab and European slavers? Finally, more than 350,000 Union soldiers died, and another 250,000 suffered injuries in the Civil War. Should their descendants pay reparations to the descendants of the slaves their ancestors died to free? Nina May is founder and chair of the Renaissance Women, which is an educational nonprofit foundation. She produced, directed, wrote, and edited the award-winning documentary Emancipation, Revelation, Revolution about the history of the civil rights movement in America, and she produced and directed the sequel Reparations, Who Should Pay? Nina, thank you so much for joining me. All right, so should the U.S. pay?
So that was just the interview, and I think went through all of what I wanted to talk about today. So the main concept of this is just learned helplessness, right? The failure to believe that your outcomes are independent of your own responses, right? That it doesn't matter what you do. You're a black person, right? And thank God that PragerU is finally going to be in schools. At least that's how I heard. I got a text in Florida talking about how PragerU is in schools now. And it's finally like this, because NOA as a parent, education is the most important issue for me right now. Because end of the day, Hitler said it best. He who controls the children controls the future. And many Democrats understand that. That's why they so heavily cater to the teachers' unions. Because they understand that school is the transmission of values. This is why I'm homeschooling my kids. This is why. Because I can't trust a teacher to give an unbiased take on history. The full breadth of history. Because only the teacher will be interested in is, I want to teach the kid a certain value. Democratic values. How to be a Democrat. How to make them think like me because I think it's good. Regardless of how the parents feel about what I'm teaching them, they need to know this. Right? It's sad that in our society today, that as a parent, I have such lack of trust for teachers. Because I don't believe teacher unions or teachers associations have the best interests of my children. So I know for sure what interests I have for my kids. Because at the end of the day, if I'm wrong, the little guy right here next to me, he can always come find me. Hey, daddy, you were wrong about this. Oh, I was, son? How? Boom. He can hold me accountable for misinformation. But a teacher, you're only guaranteed to see that teacher maybe a year, maybe that semester. Maybe that school year is the only time you'll see that teacher. And if that teacher's wrong, what responsibility would that teacher have for giving my kid misinformation? None. Suffer no penalty. So if you suffer no penalty, you don't deserve to instill your values in my kid, especially if I can't hold you accountable for that. If you convince my son that he's a woman and he decides to do gender mutilation surgery, and then he regrets the decision later, I can't go sue you for convincing him that he was for fraud. So if you can't be held accountable for false information, teachers, stay out of the business of transmitting values to our children. How about that? Can that be something that parents and teachers can agree on? But if you want to play that game, you better hold yourself to the same accountability. Right? And I agree, Unicross, I you know me. Now, this is the kind of stuff we should be including in our campus education. The less a student knows about a teacher's politics, the more likely the teacher is actually doing their job. I agree with that statement, actually. To me, education should have only one focus: to educate our kids. Reading, writing, arithmetic. School should be teaching our kids how to think, not what to think. Values are what to think. That should be on the parents. How to think should be on the teachers, right? And if you want to do a controversial topic like slavery, have two sides arguing the points. Have a conservative teacher argue one side, have the liberal teacher argue the other. That would make a better classroom than having one teacher who statistically is likely to be a liberal teach your kids only a one-way view of U.S. history. And usually these liberals nowadays, they think it's cool to hate on their own country, right? But we don't call liberals sellouts. It's fascinating how that works, right? But hey, you know, I digress. So my two options for pretty much my whole thoughts about Black history as a whole has been hugely influenced by Red, White, and Black and Dinesh D'Souza's Death of a Nation. Those are some good books. I think Dinesh has a movie documentary about this book. So check it out if you ever have the time. I really do appreciate you guys for coming out. Little guy here is getting a little hot because these lights are beaming in our face. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video on their way out. I hope you guys found this video insightful. This is my 2-hour rant on Black history. I hope you guys found it useful, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. I hope you all guys have a great weekend. Peace.